Joining us to talk more about the elections and its implication is Bulent Aliriza. He's a director and senior associate of the Turkey Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome back to our broadcast on this very historic day.
Good to be here.
This was a surprise for everyone. You predicted this as well, that you said or you've said since then that this was more than anyone had expected. Tell us more about this.
Every one of the opinion polls, and I checked them again, predicted that the highest the AKP was likely to get would be around 43–44%. And they ended up with just over 49%. The Prime Minister, Ahmet Davutoğlu, on a TV broadcast 3 days ago, was saying that he expected about 44%. So for this party to get 49% is probably unseen in the history of opinion polls. It
was a big gamble for Erdogan, but it certainly paid off. Do you think it was fixed in some way?
Well, there's no evidence that that there were any shenanigans at the ballot box, but no doubt over the next few days we're actually going to hear the opposition parties suggesting that there were improprieties. But nonetheless, the result is a great victory for the AKP.
Well, the party narrative had been that only it could provide stability and eliminate violence, and clearly the Turkish voters are not supporting coalition type of government, so they were worried about the financial situation. Was it the narrative that they listened to?
You know, I think you mentioned the two factors which were most important. One was the chaos after the last elections, where the three parties that actually had a majority, theoretically, mathematically, could not agree among themselves to form a government, and this was exploited by President Erdogan. The second is the violence, the sense of chaos that pervaded throughout Turkey after the suicide bombing in Ankara might have propelled people, along with the fighting in the southeast against the PKK, to go for a single-party government, which was the argument that President Erdogan and the AKP had played all along.
So well more than the 276 seats that were actually needed, but he was still 14 seats short, I believe, for calling for a referendum on changing the Constitution and actually increasing his power.
Now, without getting into the weeds, what he needed in order to be able to legislate was 367, which is 2/3 of the 550. 330 would have allowed him to go to a referendum, which he would hope to win, in order to transform his de facto presidency into a de jure presidency through a change to a presidential system. Now, clearly, that's not going to happen. In fact, what I think we have is a return to the situation between President Erdogan's election as president in August 2014 and the June elections, when he had a majority in the National Assembly, but not enough to be able to transform the system into a presidential system. But he ran the party system on a de facto basis. We go back to that now.
Bulent, how is the EU going to look at this election? How will they judge it? Turkey stands to get a lot of money to deal with the Syrian refugees. How will all of this play into the election?
Well, Chancellor Merkel of Germany went to Turkey just before the elections in a very unusual and a trip which was criticized by some of her opponents in Germany, and proposed that I think it was $3 billion for Turkey not to allow the refugees who were coming in from Syria and elsewhere to go on to the EU. That has actually gone into trouble within the EU itself, and that offer was never really made. Now, there is a report that the European Parliament has been waiting until the elections to release, which is going to be critical of the suppression of the media in Turkey. And I do not anticipate an improvement in EU-Turkish relations in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible that Erdogan could have orchestrated some of this violence that's been going on?
Well, the leader of the Kurdish party you're referring to in the opening of this particular segment actually accused President Erdogan of being involved in the events that led to the fighting with the PKK. And he actually accused what he called the Palace Gladio of being behind this, a secret organization attached to the presidency. Now, there are suspicions on the part of the opposition, but we'll wait to see whether the chaos that ensued during the interregnum between the elections will continue afterwards, or whether it's done its work.
We will know in due time. Bulent Aliriza, thank you so much. We appreciate it from CSIS.